All right, we are still following that breaking news out of college hoops where Texas is hiring Xavier's Sean Miller as its next head coach. That is the very latest from our very own Matthew Norlander. Miller has spent the past 3 seasons with Xavier, leading the Musketeers to the tournament twice during that stretch. He's going to replace Rodney Terry, who was fired on Sunday after 3 years in Austin. In 20 seasons as a head coach with Xavier and Arizona, Miller has made the tournament 13 times with 9 appearances in the Sweet 16 or better. All right, we are joined by the very busy Matthew Norlander. Matt, we know you have a lot going on. We appreciate it. Let's talk about some of these coaching hires. You can grade them. A lot has happened, a lot going on. Texas, we're starting here because they almost hired Sean Miller a couple of years ago before Rodney Terry led the Longhorns to the Elite Eight as the interim coach. Why did they decide to circle back to him after firing Terry here just recently?
Yeah, well, so Sean Miller was seriously considered to be a candidate at Texas a couple of years ago. Rodney Terry was an interim for Chris Beard, and then Texas beat Xavier in the 2023 tournament in the Sweet 16. Terry makes the Elite Eight. He does just enough to win the job, but in talking to sources, and this has been something of an open secret in college basketball for a year or two now, Rodney Terry was just never Chris Del Conte's guy. He happened to be on Chris Beard's staff when Beard was hired at Texas, and then obviously he was fired from Texas. And so Sean Miller remained a lingering curiosity for Chris Del Conte. He wasn't the only candidate. I was told that, Chris Del Conte even sniffed around on potentially could he lure Quinn Snyder away from the NBA, but that was not going to happen. And so with Terry not having an ultra successful season this season, and then coincidentally enough, I mean, talk about the fates, Xavier beating Texas in the first 4, his desires to get Miller, they made a full push. This really accelerated quickly on Sunday. People at Xavier obviously fairly thrown by this. Can only imagine that a lot of people are not happy at Xavier right now because Sean Miller went back to Cincinnati after being fired from Arizona. And the hope there was that he would be there for a long time. Instead, he's there 3 years for the second stint, and now he is off to Austin. So it will be an interesting fit. The Texas job is considered one of the 10 best in college basketball. There's going to be a lot of resources obviously allocated to him, and it has to be by necessity. I mean, the SEC right now, it's set records. It just put 14 teams in the tournament, the most ever by far, and just now has 7 teams in the Sweet 16. Texas not being one of them, but that's a record for one conference in the second weekend of the tournament. So you see Miller, what he's done here. One more bit of context, Jacqueline, for you. I was told that Miller's desires to ultimately win a national championship and compete for Final Fours on the regular, he just felt as though a job like Texas would enable him to have a better chance to do that than at Xavier. I might personally disagree with Sean Miller on that. I think that Xavier is a really, really good job and has an incredible line of successful coaches over the years. And with the right guy and the fact that they'll have revenue sharing and no football to pay out, I actually think Xavier's in a pretty solid position moving forward. But regardless, this is a major, major shakeup on the coaching carousel. Probably not going to be the last one this cycle. Yeah, and Matt, we're going to go through some more. But before we move on, really quickly, just grade it for us here with Sean Miller there going to Texas. What is the grade? Okay, I will hesitantly grade, but I don't grade high. Grading something requires the submission of actual work, and Sean Miller has not yet coached a game. So every year, I do grades at the site, CBSSports.com. I grade it 4 years after, once we've seen what the coach can do. But for the purposes of television, I would call this a B+ hire for Texas. Okay, all right, Matt. So let's move forward and talk about Minnesota. Niko Medved, he is their new head coach there, and Minnesota, a tough place to win. We know Big Ten basketball is the real deal, but what are your thoughts on that pairing? Yeah, this is a match made in heaven, and this was the transparent, obvious choice. Mark Coyle, the athletic director at Minnesota, was on the selection committee. He actually left the selection committee in Indiana, flew to Minnesota, and surprised, in not a good way, but surprised the Minnesota coaching staff and Ben Johnson. This was back during conference tournament week, and fired him in the middle of the night. When that happened, Mark Coyle had Niko Medved at the top of his list. Medved went to Minnesota. He grew up in Minneapolis. He is a native there. This is a job that Medved has coveted. Now, the timing is unfortunate in this regard. I mean, he was one shot away from coaching in the Sweet 16, getting Colorado State to its first Sweet 16 since 1969. But Derek Queen hits the buzzer beater, And the nature of all this, as we speak here on Monday, the portal is open. So you've got a lot of these positions that are looking to get filled as players go into the portal, and it is a very, very volatile time in college basketball. The portal should be not open, in my opinion, at least until another week from now. Talk to any coach, they're going to agree with this, but that's where we are right now. Medved was basically forced. He wants to go and coach Minnesota. He's not leaving Colorado State happily. It's not an easy thing for him to do. He did a lot of great stuff there and has done an incredible job in Fort Collins, but if you want to take this job, if you want to go back home, you got to move quickly. So this will be announced later on Monday. I'm told, in a press conference will be held on Tuesday.
All right, let's talk about Ben McCollum, because after just one season at Drake, he is staying in the Hawkeye State. He's going to coach Iowa. How do you think he's going to fare as a head coach there in a Power 5 conference, Matt?
Well, I'll tell you what, so we're talking Minnesota and Iowa here, and those are two of the schools that had the worst, and I mean by worst, like two of the 3 or 4 lowest, if not 2 of the 3 lowest NIL situations in the Big Ten. It'd be interesting to see how those schools can respond and raise money moving forward, and I think Minnesota is actually in a position to maybe improve its situation. Iowa, we'll see. McCollum makes sense. He's an Iowa native, did a great job at Drake. We've got a few hirings here where the obvious candidate is getting the job, and Iowa making it official on Monday. If he can do even 80% at Iowa, what he did at Drake, it's going to be huge for the Hawkeyes here. He's a whip-smart coach, really runs some great stuff, has a great reputation, won 4 national titles at the D2 level, and another coach that seems like a very, very good fit. I was told Beth Getz, the athletic director at Iowa, basically had Darren DeVries, who was at West Virginia and now is at Indiana. He was the 1A. McCollum was the 1B. They really focused in, were able to get the job and deal done on Sunday, and then obviously make it official on Monday. So that'll be interesting to see McCollum in Iowa yellow starting next season. You
mentioned Darren DeVries taking over there in Indiana, and we know he's going to be replacing Mike Woodson, who had a tough go of it there for his alma mater. Didn't leave on the best terms, so what is it going to be like for him stepping into a role where the fans are not afraid to be vocal about firing their head coach? We saw it on full display, Matt.
Yeah, no, listen, DeVries is a different kind of guy from every guy they've had at Indiana. They're trying a whole bunch of different combinations. They haven't had sustained success over year at IU since the Bob Knight heyday here. But DeVries is a Midwest guy. Indiana's a really, really good job. And this will be intriguing. I was talking with DeVries a few days ago. I said it's weird seeing you in red, because he was at West Virginia, long time Creighton assistant, got the Drake job. It's always been blue. He said, I haven't worn red since I was playing in high school. So it's got a chance to work. We'll see. These hirings get made. You have these huge conferences. Jacqueline, there are 18 teams. Like, some teams got to finish 16th, 17th, 18th, and I don't think that Indiana's going to be in that situation, not even close under DeVries. But it is interesting just to see the machinations of the coaching carousel and what schools are impulsed to do what. I think DeVries will do well. But I do want to note here, we are now talking with the Sweet 16 that includes Dusty May at Michigan, Mark Pope at Kentucky, Kevin Young at BYU, and John Calipari at Arkansas. Those are all first-year coaches at their programs, and they're in the Sweet 16. So the fact that other athletic directors and fan bases can look at schools and say, why can't that be us? It's only going to probably make for a more volatile coaching carousel moving ahead, and we still might not even be done with a shocking move or two in this year's cycle.
All right, finally, let's talk about Ryan Odom. He's going to be the new head coach at Virginia, which Virginia fans are very familiar in terms of the upset that they saw a while back at the hands of Ryan Odom. I was on the set when that news broke, and all of our analysts were saying this is a great hire. I love this fit. Matt, are you on the same page there?
I am. This is the third one. You've got Medved, a Minneapolis native, going to Minnesota. McCollum, an Iowa native, going back to Iowa. And then you've got Odom, whose father was an assistant at Virginia. He grew up in Virginia. Obviously, has been at VCU, has huge ties there. I do think that the hire makes a lot of sense. He's already started building out the staff. I reported on Sunday that Griff Aldrich, who was the head coach at nearby Longwood, he has now left his head coaching position to be the associate head coach at Virginia, and Odom makes a ton of sense. He's a really, really good fit. I actually spoke with former Virginia coach Tony Bennett over the weekend, and he seemed very excited about the prospect of it as well. Obviously, Tony knew Ron Sanchez, the interim head coach, wanted that to work. It didn't, but in absence of that, Tony Bennett's also very excited about what lies ahead here. Odom is I would say, like a lot of these coaches we've talked about here, Jacqueline, they do, on paper, like a lot of them seem to make a lot of sense for why the guy ended up in the place. I might be able to make the case that there might not be a better fit overall than Ryan Odom going to Charlottesville and guiding Virginia. But as always, we'll see. Carousel continues to move, and every year, we got the tournament going on, the portal's now open, coaches switching jobs. March Madness means a lot more than just what happens on the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say, as if you don't have enough on your plate, Matthew Norlander, we're talking about the tournament and now the portal and all the different coaching hires, but that's just this day and age in college hoops. Matt, we certainly appreciate it, and you can hear more from Matt Norlander alongside Gary Parrish on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Previews for the Sweet 16 and everything all week long. You can download, follow, listen wherever you listen to your favorite pods, or scan that QR code on your screen.